Hey everyone, it is Shannon, and I'm here today with a Friday Reads video. In my Friday Reads videos, I share the books that I finished, the books that I started, and anything interesting about books that I'm carrying over week to week, and I'm not sure this week that I have any carryovers. We'll see as I go. I think I mostly finished and started things, and that's because I'm participating in Grinchathon, which is a readathon hosted by Izzy, Punk Rock Girl PA, and it goes until Saturday, August 1st. So I did finish a bunch of stuff in anticipation for Grinchathon, and then I started a bunch of stuff for my Grinchathon TBR. And it's funny because today's the last day of the month, and normally I would really do a real push to the end of the month, but most of my titles that I'm working on are actually for Grinchathon, so I'm going to be doing the big push tomorrow on Saturday, August 1st. So it's kind of funny that it's just a little bit different this time. I'm not worried about that. My July numbers are actually pretty high. I think I ended up finishing 34 titles. That's not novels. That includes short works, graphic novels, manga, a whole bunch of stuff. I did end up reading a whole bunch of manga during Grinchathon, which I didn't anticipate. It's just because it was going to expire from the library, so I finished a volume of Naruto as well as 2 volumes of Vampire Knight. I didn't notice that they were going to expire, so I ended up spending a fair amount of time reading that, even though they weren't on my TBR, but it's okay because in Grinchathon you can the rule is that there are no rules. So, but one that I finished right before Grinchathon for my buddy read with Izzy was Blended by Sharon M. Draper. This one is a really light cover, and I'll get a good sense of it. Oh, I had it for a moment. It's really just, this happened during the live show, which was earlier this week. So I'll do that. And then, so this is a middle grade novel about a girl who her family is like, her mom is white and her dad is black, and the parents divorce. And then she ends up she spends 1 week with each of the parents, and both of the parents end up with new partners. So she ends up sort of going back and forth between the different families. And it also deals with some quite, strong, serious topics, especially including racism and race. It's one of the titles, I'll leave a link to Izzy's discussion video above. There was some challenges during the live show. It got cut off a few times, so whatever is available I will put there, and if there's more than one video I will link them down below. It was really weird. There were just some issues with that. And I did really enjoy this one. I felt like there were with some of the serious topics, I feel like it would be a really good read, like a class read or something that you would read with a parent so that you could discuss the different things. There were a couple things that came up in terms of race that I was surprised that she hadn't talked to her parents about, or actually I was surprised her parents hadn't talked to her about. For the majority of the book she is 11, which is quite young. Here that would be grade 6. In Canada that would be grade 6, and so these are pretty strong, especially even with the family upheaval, that in and of itself is a lot to deal with. And then adding the challenges or incidences or stuff that happens in school. It actually went much more serious than I anticipated. I thought it was mostly going to be about her and her family, but there are some really, really strong topics. Strong is not the best, serious topics and issues that come up. So I really enjoyed reading it. I do want to read more from this author. There is one, I can't remember the title, but there is another book that often people talk about that she's read. It's got a fishbowl on the cover. Scribd has it, and Scribd had this in ebook. It might have been audiobook as well. Let me know. I often mention whether or not Scribd has something, but I know that I tend to read books on Scribd in ebook format, and I think most people who have Scribd listen in audiobook. So I don't know if it's helpful or not to mention if it's on Scribd. So if it is or not, please let me know, because it would make a difference to help know how available stuff is. One of the things I think that's cool about Scribd is I'm pretty sure their catalog is pretty similar in different countries, which is not often the case with some other subscription service like Netflix or Prime or whatever. So I know those are movies and TV stuff, but still, it's just anyway. So let me know, is it helpful to know if it's available on Scribd? Another title that I read, and this was for my August TBR, but it actually would have qualified for a couple of different categories for Grinchathon, was I burned through volume 1, 2, and 3 of Fence by C.S. Pacat, and I don't know if that's how you say their name, and so it is written by C.S. Pacat, illustrated by Johanna the Mad, and they are co-creators of the series. This is a graphic novel series about fencing, actually most and centered on a school that has a fencing team, and we follow I can't remember his name. I feel like this guy is the protagonist. I feel like that's, I think maybe just because we start with him and he's trying to get into this fencing school and he needs to get on the team to maintain a scholarship and maintain presence at the school. So I thought that this was really good, but one of the things, because I went right from the first to the second volume, is that I realized that I might, in terms of picking graphic novels, I might go for either completed series or only volume 1 is available, because I only intended to read volume 1, but I had to know what happened. So I got the first one on Scribd, and then 2 and 3 were available on Hoopla. And it feels like that those 3 feel like an arc, and there is another set there is more content, but it's not available on Hoopla yet. So I enjoyed this. I've heard a fair amount of people talk about this series. There are some LGBT themes that go on in this one. I think mostly because it's a guy's school. I think there's mostly male characters in this one. There is some rivalries, of course there's lots of competition because people want to get on the team. I did find it hard to understand how many people would actually make the team. Like, there felt like so many people that were trying out for the team and that had enough skill and training to be contenders. It felt like it much, much, much outweighed who would end up being on the team. So I felt like that was a bit confusing to me. But I did enjoy the story. I like stories about sport. It's something that I feel like isn't represented a lot in books or graphic novels. If you have any recommendations, my ears are wide open for that. It's something that I wish there was a bit more crossover in, but sometimes there is not. I also finished reading, finally, Odd Thomas by Dean Koontz. I started this a couple months ago. That primarily in Grinchathon, this was the big novel that I was focused on. It is an urban fantasy / horror thriller following the character of Odd, who can see ghosts. And I'm not going to go too much into the story. I will actually do a separate review on this because it is part of the sci-fi fantasy and weird list. And so I'll talk about it more then. And I think I am going to get into doing more reviews, especially for some of the genres that I really love and talk about a fair amount, including urban fantasy, paranormal romance, nonfiction, historical romance, maybe, science fiction and fantasy. So I think anything that's sort of that ilk and is like the first book in the series or a standalone, I might start to do reviews of, because then we can talk more in depth about it. And I love the idea of doing mostly spoiler-free, and then if I have any spoilers, to do them at the end. That is actually how I started doing my sci-fi fantasy and weird reviews back when I started doing those, and so it kind of makes sense to go back to that format. One of someone commented that would be a good way to do it, so thank you for commenting on that. I heard you, and I think that is a good way to go. So yeah, so I finished that, so that was good to get a finish under the something word, I don't know. Anyway, and then I also did finish reading last weekend the short Second Life of Bree Tanner by Stephenie Meyer. This is a novella that is a concurrent storyline during Eclipse, which is the third book of the Twilight saga, because I am continuing to read these, and I am continuing to read these backwards, but I read this after Eclipse because I do tend to read the in-betweeners sort of like a little ahead, so that made sense to still do it that way. I didn't really love it. I did enjoy the perspective. It really just, you end up sort of seeing more of the story in the movie, it's one of those things that after the fact you don't remember how little of this you had any idea was going on in Eclipse. So I kind of understand why it came out separately, but it's such a different tone than Twilight, because Twilight's a paranormal romance and there's like none of that going on here. This is much more sort of almost a thriller kind of horror-ish thing. Kind of. I don't know. Anyway, so I finished it. Yay, good for me. That's, pretty much all. I'm just glad that I finished it. And I did start New Moon, and I had actually decided, I had thought I would be well into this, but I am one single chapter into this. So I am continuing to read this backwards with Ala Olivia from Olivia's Catastrophe, who is doing the whole series reread backwards, and I'm really enjoying doing it that way, especially because New Moon and Twilight are I enjoy much, much more. So I did decide to start this a bit early because I would like to finish New Moon pretty soon and then get right to Twilight, because I did decide I wasn't going to, but I now have decided that I am going to read Midnight Sun, which is Twilight from Edward's perspective. It's coming out on August 4th. So I am really curious to see what that'll be like. And I guess I'm probably going to read New Moon, Twilight, and then Midnight Sun, but I'm looking at the timeline and it's feeling a little crunchy because I would love to finish it for Nicole and Jen have been reading the series, and Nicole from Who Picked This Book. And they are actually going to do a discussion on Midnight Sun on August 12th. So if you are planning on reading Midnight Sun and you want to talk to people about it, that is a great way to do that. I am definitely going to attend that live show. I really hope to finish the book in time for that. I will leave a link to Nicole's channel down below so you can check it out. I did participate, or I attended the live show for Eclipse and Breaking Dawn, and they were both so much fun. Even though I read them backwards, like I had read both of those, so I didn't watch the Twilight and New Moon ones. Maybe I will go and watch them after I have read the books. So yeah, so it's been sort of fun to go back into the land of Twilight. It's been so long. I was I love the first two books and I love all of the films, but I know the films a lot better than the books, so it's been interesting to go back and read them. So hopefully I can finish New Moon pretty quickly. I don't think it's like 500 pages, but I know the story quite well, and so I don't think it'll take too long, so we'll see how that goes. Some of the stuff that I am reading for Grinchathon includes The Penguin Guide to Punctuation. This has been so much fun. I have been posting about it on Instagram and Twitter. I have read about the full stop, question mark, exclamation mark, the comma, the hyphen, and the dash, and the colon, and the semicolon. And it's been interesting to see. It's just interesting, the tone of it. And now next up is capital letters and abbreviations. So I'm curious about it. Like, and some of the things are like, oh yeah, I totally didn't realize that that's sort of how you use that, or how you, I recognize a lot of the examples of how you don't do things. But I also have found some of the, especially the commas and the semicolon and the colon, when you use it, and you only use it here, has been helpful. But the tone of the book is really interesting. It's like, you would never do this, or it drives me, I actually don't know. I don't know if it's a male or female author. But like the whole, like, it's infuriating when someone uses it in this way. And they even talk about how they use casual language sometimes in this book, but in formal language, you wouldn't say some of the things that they've said. So it's just interesting to hear, because I think now, especially with social media and stuff, we don't use formal language all that much. Like, we, use punctuation marks creatively in all different fashions. But the thing that I love about this is it brings it back to that they're there for clarity. They're there to help the reader understand what you're saying. And I am a big fan of clarity. Like, it doesn't come up all that often in conversation, but for me, like, it's great to be inspired by things and to have something be a tipping off point and those kinds of things. But like, when I'm trying to communicate to someone, I hope that what I say is clear. And I know I'm not the clearest. I know that, because sometimes my thoughts aren't super clear, and sometimes my thoughts aren't in words. So it's like, translation from like idea to words to how someone else would understand that. So for me, I'm enjoying it from that perspective. I like reading nonfiction books about English and grammar and punctuation. I just do. I don't do it that, like, I do probably maybe 1 or 2 a year or whatever, but I often don't find, like, there's not a lot of time where I am writing formally. So there isn't a huge amount of area to put the rules into action. And I know people don't like rules, but these rules, like for me, these rules are there for clarity. So I'm down for clarity. I do have a potential word project or experiment or exploration in the works. I don't know when I'll get to it, but reading this book has inspired me to think about maybe incorporating that. I don't know if it's something I could do videos for or not, but I will think about it because I like words and I like sharing new words. I think in August I'll probably share more words on Instagram because I'm going to be reading more on my Kindle. And when I encounter a new word on Kindle or a new to me word on Kindle, I like to share it on Instagram for fun, for fun and learning. So it's an easy way to do it. It's not as easy to do it if I'm reading a print book. So that's one pro for Kindle. A couple other books that I have started for Grinchathon include In the Days of the Cotton Wind and the Sparrow by Raffi Aaron. This is a collection of poetry. This one felt very Grinchy to me. I felt like this could be like the Grinch's summer home. And poetry is always a good fit for readathon because they're short. Although I can only read so much poetry at a time, I feel like my retention level sort of wanes after maybe like 10 or 20 poems, and after that I'm reading it, but I'm not really absorbing it. So I actually probably, even though I don't have much, this is a tiny book, I probably won't finish it for Grinchathon. I will probably finish Beauty Surrounds Us by Suzette McIntyre and Kerrie Flanagan. This is a combination of images and words and images, so photographs and paintings. I think it might have been for like exhibit or a competition, because often it says like finalist or semi-finalist, and so I've been really enjoying reading it. This one I've been able to read a bit faster. I'm trying to, the one that I have next is, just fabulous. So it's a really fast read because sometimes they just have, like the poems are just a few lines. So, I already showed that one. Well, what can you do? So yeah, so I am reading that, and then I'm also reading Let's Talk About Love by, that got upside down. How did that happen? Let's Talk About Love by Claire Kahn. This is a contemporary romance with an asexual protagonist, and I'm really enjoying it so far. I'm very early stages of this. Even though I've read it several days, I've only managed to get through about 25 pages. It follows a woman who's a college student, and I'm really liking it. Like, it's the one interesting thing though is it's not first person, which I feel like is a bit unusual for romances, and I think that's because I started reading it just after I finished Odd Thomas, which is first person, which is a bit unusual for sort of like horror. So anyway, I am enjoying this. I'm looking forward to reading it. I probably will not finish it for Grinchathon, but good news is August is all about romance because it's the summer fling, and so I can easily carry that over from one readathon to another. I hope nobody minds. And I'm really, really looking forward to watching everyone's August TBRs. I have watched a couple already, Amy from Zoe Beck and Sarah from Steeped in Books, and there are so many that popped up this week, so I'm looking forward to seeing what people are reading in August, whether it's for the summer fling or not for the summer fling. If you have done an August TBR, feel free to let me know in the comments because I would love to check it out. I'm sure that is going to be a fun part of this weekend, is just seeing what everyone is reading. And I did want to mention, I got a comment last week about category romance and what category romance is in terms of my August TBR and the readathon, and I thought I would just put a shout out to, or just make mention that category romances are basically like Harlequins, anything that's sort of like a monthly imprint, that there is a large volume that comes out, and so definitely Harlequins, anything that would be on sort of like the small paperbacks kind of idea, from what I understand. And if you are interested, usually Harlequin does have a promotion for if you would like to try their different lines, and right now they do. It's at tryharlequin.com, or if you go from the main site, I think if you go to like the promotions area or something, I will leave a link to that below as well, and to tryharlequin.com, because if you sign up for their newsletter, you can download one title from each of their different imprints. Now they choose the titles, so they will let you know. I think I have one of them here. I think most of them are from last year. Did I pick it? Yeah, so one of them, for the Desire one, is Black Tie Billionaire by Naya Simone. They have a different cover. They have the new Desire, which has yellow, which I always think is historical. It takes me a while. When they changed what the imprints look like. It takes me a while to adapt. Anyway, so this is their selection for desire, but they have one for desire, historical, dare, love-inspired, romantic suspense, medical, like one for each of their 12 lines. So if you want to try them out, you can sign up for their newsletter and then download it. They do come as a PDF, so you need a way to read on PDFs. Like I find I can put them on my Kindle through Calibre, but they are pretty small and you can't resize them. But if you read it on a tablet, it probably is fine. PDFs are a bit tricky. Like I understand why they do it. It's a more secure document and you can't alter it, which makes sense when you're giving something away for free. But yeah, so I download the file and then put them on my Kindle through Calibre. That's what I do. But if you've never read a Harlequin and you want to try it out, like I find that there's so many available through Overdrive on my library and at the physical library too, which we're going to stage 3 as of today. So the libraries are, I'll put a link to the Toronto Public Library press release. I can't remember exactly what how they're opening things, but they are going to start to phase in more opening ups. I think that's what they're going to do, but they still have pickup, I think, at most locations. So yeah, anyway, so I just thought I'd throw that out there. If you've never read a Harlequin before, you can download 12 PDFs, one per line, and try some out and see what suits your fancy. So, and also if you want to do the summer fling, but you don't have any romances at all, there are 12 titles right there for you to be able to try out and enjoy. So there you go. This was not sponsored. I just noticed it and downloaded them myself this week. So I thought I would share because I like to share resources. So there you go. Let me know what you are up to this weekend. What are you reading? If you are here in Ontario, happy long weekend. It's the civic holiday on Monday. I don't know if that's just Ontario or all of the provinces or some of the provinces in the territories. I have no idea. I never really know what this one is for other than like long weekend in August. So bad Canadian. Anyway, I am going to wrap this up and and then I am going to get to watching some more August TBRs. I can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in my next video.